I don't know why I don't just stop it. So how was that variation of the lesson for you? What did you learn about even distribution of tone this morning that might have been more clearly specified in the lesson? How much it's not in your system. Yeah, yeah. In all these lessons, we think that I mean, we get up with the sense of wholeness, but it still doesn't necessarily mean that we've distributed the tone evenly. Yeah.
I think for me, was the timing of the shoulder blades at the same time as your legs. It's just, there's something not quite there yet for me. But
yeah, I was talking about just the process by which when you have the one leg and you lift the one leg, but you haven't really included the other leg, or you haven't included the elbow, or you haven't really included the under the ribs, and you haven't really included the whole way of everything being in contact with the floor. That was what I was referring to. But
yeah. Okay.
I did find it interesting. You asked us what happened when we were up in that position, if we put our elbow back or our arm back. I found that particularly when you were asking us to draw on our psoas muscles, that if I turned my arm back over, like I could just feel this falling in my middle.
Yes.
And it would go back up again, and then it could make it go back down again.
Yes.
It's quite, well, for me, it felt quite a clear connection. It's really interesting.
Now you understand why core strengthening is ridiculous. All the training to train the core, when in fact it's your left elbow. If you would have only known about your left elbow, you would have been able to. So you can see that as we've been exploring these things, we can see that the pattern with which a person trains themselves means that they only continue to strengthen themselves in the pattern that they find, how they historically find the support from the surface they're on, which means they can only train themselves within the degree to which they find the support. Yeah? So we don't have the even distribution of tone, and we don't, I won't be able to find it, I'm sorry, I've looked and looked, but I had a good article in which they were talking, where they'd done the research on core stability relative to non-specific low back pain. They did a review of all the studies. And when they did the review of the studies, what they found was that there was zero correlation between core strengthening exercises and mitigating or helping people with non-specific low back pain. Yeah? The final conclusion of the article was, what people need to learn is core ability, not core stability. Yeah. Core stability, core ability, what we just did. What we just did, which was to continually find and vary the way that we made contact with the surfaces, so that we had a really, really powerful, really variable ways of meeting the surface, and continually finding, as I've said, and I'll say it again, this is not the easiest concept. Our muscle tone is always related to the specificity with which we find the support from the surface we're on. I can't help but have this muscle tone. That's how I found the surface. If I change the surface, the contact with the surface provides me the basis from which the tone is turned on. But the tone is turned on in order for me to find the surface. It's a continual dance between, in a knowledgeable way, how to keep finding more and more specific support for myself relative to whatever the activity is. And we've seen several different examples of people lying on the table And they have such a profound preference for rolling one way and not rolling the other. Now they'll do their core exercises within that pattern, because everybody here has done core exercises for some time, probably at some point in time, went to Pilates or something to strengthen their core, and it didn't mitigate the difference between how they roll from one side to the other. It didn't change a whit the way that they found the support from one leg to the other. It didn't improve their walking. The changes are specific in the state-specific process in which the musculature is trained to the process. And we're trying to not have the training lead to that state specificity, but to have the knowledge of how to find within ourselves the means to support ourselves, moment by moment by moment. These lessons go away too, yeah? But if we know the process, we can continue to elicit and to continue the refinement with ourselves. All right, now
I think you just said what I was going to say, sort of, only in a much more eloquent way. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Anyway, I think what was really interesting in that lesson, based on what we did yesterday, is what you just said, is going from one side to the other, and you're thinking about whether or not that was your flexion side or your extension side, and realizing that from one side to the other, it was very hard to switch off the predominant pattern to go into the other side based on which the pattern was.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah. Now we started to play with that when yesterday you had to roll in such a way that you could scissor your legs so that you could sit up, or you could roll in such a way that you could scissor your legs to roll, so that you're starting to catch this. And we've given several examples of how you notice the predominant pattern. And I find that I lift in one way far more easily than I lift in the other way. And in the other way, no matter what I do, I find that I initiate in my back first, and then I find my leg, and then I find my back. And well, so what's to keep me from finding out how to make it with my back both ways? What's to keep me from finding out how I can, but then my association has to be so clear. And my internal image and my idea of what I'm doing has to become clear enough that I can actually, And so you can see that we keep giving more and more imagery to the lesson, so that the specificity of this can become more and more distinct as we make the lessons. So that, can you see this is a model of functional integration where we're using functional integration principles for the guidance of how the class is taught. Yeah, this series of lessons couldn't this be the way that you would work with someone, who's become your client? Yeah.
More of a statement really than anything else. Just the difference in quality that you get between thinking, say, the greater Cantha versus the lesser.
Yes.
And just that. That wasn't what you were saying, was it? No.
That wasn't what
No, I was going to say. I thought you were telling me. But yeah, just that quality of differentiation,
right,
between the movements and the initiation.
Right. So now, what would happen for you if you were to speak in such a way that instead of swallowing your sound into yourself, you actually spoke out into the microphone?
It'd probably sound a bit more like this.
That would, wouldn't it? And what a funny thing that would be. Now look, right there. Watch how he just came into his posture. As soon as he did that, did you well, look, where were you sitting before? There.
Oh, just resting.
You're resting in your self-image.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure, absolutely.
So isn't that, now I took a little risk there, right? To invite him into this difference between swallowing his voice and expressing his voice, right? But you see that you can't express your voice and swallow it at the same time. You can't be in this posture and swallow your voice. I can't talk. Try to.
I would like to argue that point. Because clearly you can.
You were projecting from your sit bone, Fanny. Or was it your
Right from the sit.
Okay, that's fun. Do we have any opera people in here? Anybody who's a singer? See, no. See, it's you were trained, yeah. So this whole process by which this support is given is the difference between 3 or 4 notes to a trained opera singer. I had a woman who could hit high C over C. Yeah, and she wanted to audition for is it Requiem or Mozart's Requiem, where the aria goes to G over C, and she was trying to train herself and so we had a lesson. She was, and there was this. So we had a lesson. She was a part of the training in one of my trainings in Victoria, and after the lesson, she was in the back room, and you could hear her going through her scales. And all of a sudden, she walks into the room. She walks over to the piano, and she hits C, and then she goes, perfect. And then she goes to G, and she hits it. And it's like you could just watch that somehow she'd found this other internal support that would make it so that she could come to the place where that height in herself could take place, because you can't do it. Yeah. And the lesson had a lot to do with this. All right. So can you, on a more practical basis, these kind of lessons are really useful for who? Everyone, of course, but people with pain. What kind of pain specifically? Non-specific lower back pain. Yeah? Or other kinds of pain, yeah, low back pain, where there's been disc involvement or whatever. Because when we watch a person with any kind of low back pain, almost invariably when you watch the person, they will shear across their sacrum. Shear across their sacrum. There will be some way when they're standing or walking where their weight will come, and it'll always come into the area where they have the most difficulty. Yeah? So they'll shear, they'll be collapsed, so their body weight is always falling into the place that creates the most difficulty for them. That's you. Yeah?
I found a kind of revelation when you ask us to turn the trochanter, or to find that part inner part from the femur. And I was a little confused if I need to turn out
Still the same direction.
or not.
No, same direction.
Yeah, but I was trying both because I was a little confused. Yeah. But I found something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found support playing with this.
Yeah.
Because in going up and internal and with the consciousness on the inside part of this femur,
yeah.
I found where I can stay without pain.
Yes. Yeah, lovely.
And for a while, I don't feel pain. I don't know for how long time, but at the moment, I'm okay.
At the moment, you're okay. Yeah.
I think with fibromyalgia, it is a good help. When I have this all even tone, so not anything has to hurt.
Yeah.
If I have different tones, then the shoulder hurts, that hurts, the foot hurts.
Right.
It goes around, and with this even tone, it changes.
I agree. Okay, so please, Sylvia, come and lie on the table for a moment. Wait, no, so just, first of all, just sit if you want to. So you watch how she has settled down into her lower back. Yeah, she can. Yeah, so it's almost like as she comes, and didn't she fall as she went to the table? Even an inch of fall. I come to here, I come to here, and then I come to here and I fall. Where did my body weight go? How did I impact myself? Now, if I've had back pain, what do? I'm going to protect myself from further injury by creating pain, interestingly enough, right? Because it's the protection. It says, look, you need to have a little more skill with what you're doing. Yeah. So she sits here, and where does she sit? Her knees are inwardly, so automatically I know that if her knees are rolled inward, there's no way in the world, unless she forces herself upward, and the only way that she can force herself upward is to engage her low back. Yeah, which makes her low back. So now she's in this place of falling backwards and going forwards. And then we're in the position where most of us, when we watch in the Feldenkrais lesson with a person sitting on the roller, we have them rolling like this to increase the mobility of their lower back. But this isn't going to help her. Right? What's going to help her is for her to have the ability to lift herself in such a way that she doesn't have weight falling into the place that hurts her the most. So every single thing that we've done from the very first beginning of we walked in here, this segment, has to do with the organization of ourselves in sitting and standing and walking, for being able to lift ourselves away from the ground. Okay, so now she's beginning to sense, and she's beginning to sense something, but there's still, even this, I make this little movement and you watch. What happened to her shoulders? Did they come forward or back? What happened to her spine? Where does her head want to go? Yeah. So now when we start to think in terms of everything that we've done relative to the floor, relative to the process of finding a different point of sitting on the sit bones, so that we give her a different place of sitting on the sit bones, and we give her a different sense of how it is to have this movement come into her, so that she has this ability to be long through herself. Now, what will support this? Because as soon as I let go, her hand wants to go, and her whole system, which wants to come back. And it's beautiful posture. You look at it, if she sat in a restaurant where people would say she has beautiful posture, look how upright she is. But we can see that, yeah? I mean, she's an elegant woman, so you can see, look, but even here, we look at to see the where her shoulders are. If I put weight into her shoulders at this point, isn't that weight going to fall down? Yeah. So I have to see, don't I? I have to start to see, what does it look like to have the weight lifting up and through? Okay. So let's take this lesson a little bit and then continue to work with our own abilities to palpate and to see these movements. Okay, so that we can learn to use this mostly for ourselves, but then when we understand this, we can bring it to others. Okay, so please lie on your back again. So a little of this, a little of that, we did a little of this, I did some of that, I did a little of this and that, that and that, Okay, now we're at this point of the lesson, okay? A little of this, a little of that, we did some, a little feet and head, a little bit the ankles, helping you find and sensing whether the movement is easy on one side and the other, all those sort of things. So what did you see? Her leg fell inward, even though I very carefully placed her But for her, something within her wants to do that. Yeah? So I can begin to anticipate, yeah, that if she starts to make the movement to lift her pelvis, go ahead and start to roll your pelvis to the right. Yeah? That the movement wants to come inward and downward. And look where she's finding the support. On the inner part of her foot, on the inner part of her heel. Yeah? Now, if I'm standing like that, on the inner part of my foot and the inner part of my heel, I no longer have this spiral. I no longer am sitting in the place where I can just simply lift myself away from the ground. Yeah? And it's predictable that in some ways you'll find that she still has the experience of heaviness when she makes a movement, or she'll. Yeah. Now we have to understand that this all has to do with something with her self-image. Now, come around so you can see. Because we've played with all kinds of things. We played with the roller, we played with finding the fourth metatarsal, we played with setting the heel down in the fourth metatarsal. We did all kinds of things. But we didn't reach under the foot to find the cuboid, to turn the cuboid up and in. Yeah, we didn't find. Now the cuboid rests where? So if I take the foot here, and I put it here, and see, if you look at the foot, you'll see that there's this bony prominence here on the outside of the fifth metatarsal. Yeah, which of course that's a point for attachments, for ligaments, for tendons. But if you look to see that inside that exactly is the cuboid, isn't it? Yeah. If you look to see, you come off of this point and you see that the cuboid is right here. And so what I'm inviting her to do, if she's here, is I'm inviting myself to be able to reach and touch the cuboids. That means I have to be able to associate, and I'm inviting the cuboid literally to turn up and in. I'm inviting the cuboid to turn up and in. Yeah? I turn the cuboid. Now, when I turn the cuboid, I'm also turning this part of the heel up and in. And you guys didn't answer my little homework assignment yet. Do you remember my homework assignment? So the fibula is related to the tibia, or to the inner arch is related to the tibia or the fibula. The outer arch is related to the tibia or the fibula. Which one is related to which?
If you look at the tibia,
Yeah.
if you look at the
So
tibia,
wait. So now you get to do the same thing that Kevin did. Find your outer voice. There you go.
right,
Your
100 people,
authority.
first step.
I mean, it's just a damn square thing. It's an orange thing. So,
I hate it.
how did that thought come up?
Sorry,
How did that thought appear?
because you
Where did it appear from?
From my pelvis.
From your history. From your history. Now, is that history useful to you now?
No,
No, good. Do you want to have that history here in the room now, or would you like to have another way of being here in the room with all of us?
yeah, I would.
Okay, so what's a way that you could connect to yourself in such a way that that could happen?
I'd rather kiss your ass before I kiss the other
That's a good question. I don't know. No,
You do know. You know one way. You know at least one way to make some connection to yourself that is sensorially based.
Yes, I need to be able to. Yeah. I need to be able to breathe. That's true.
Okay.
It's
So you support breathing by rolling back or having the force coming from the ground up and through you?
you have to have the force coming through the ground.
Beautiful.
You have to really,
Yeah, now
you
you're
do have to find your feet.
And you're speaking beautifully, aren't you, right now?
I'm not speaking at all.
You had a conversation with me. You have to find your feet.
Yeah, I do have
I
to
heard you
find-
say that.
Yeah.
And you said it with a real clear authority.
Yes.
Yeah. And it didn't make any difference if that box was there or not when you spoke to me in that
Yeah,
moment.
but that's because I'm speaking to you and I've ignored them.
Well, so you include me and one other.
Okay.
Great. Just in tiny little approximations. Because all of this stuff isn't useful if it doesn't change the way that we actually live. Yeah. Okay. So what was it you were saying about the little toe?
Okay. If you look at the mechanics, the biomechanics of the foot,
Yes.
from how I experience and how I see it moving, is that if the fibula relates directly into the fourth, into the well, it's not the talus, it's the subtalar joint, I think.
Yes.
And then you actually get direct transmission of force from the fourth metatarsal up through the fibula.
Good.
And then this is what
This is what you
this
think.
is
Yeah.
a speculation.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Good.
And then if you're looking at the head of the tibia, that relates to the talus
Yes.
and the way it glides.
Right.
It's a spiral, it has a spiral structure, so that one side, the back side, this is my theory,
Uh-huh.
the back side of the tibia relates to the back side, goes up, comes up and around to the front side of the knee, and the other side wraps around
Okay.
in a spiral action.
Okay.
And sort of relates a little bit.
Right.
So the inside,
Right.
the lateral side of the tibia has a connection to the fourth metatarsal.
Okay.
That's my theory.
It's a good theory, right? It's a really, really good theory. I would say the opposite.
Oh, okay. Could be, because my spiral's a little bit shaky at this
Yeah,
point.
no. Because I think you're right. You've located skeletally the points. The question is what do the points do?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we look at this and we say that we look at this relationship to the subtalar joint, the way the calcaneus, this peninsula bone, is directly under the talus and directly under the tibia.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Now, as I make this movement, and the movement I'm making with her, which is to invite her to find a way for the calcaneus, or the cuboid, to turn up and in. You watch, you look, this force, and you watch right here. What's changing in the shape of her ankle?
Yeah.
This is turning up and in, isn't it?
Yeah, so the fibula has to come underneath.
The fibula,
Fibula,
The
in the
fibula-
knee, in relation to the knee.
yes, you see, as I lift the inner arch, the inner arch makes it so that the fibula moves forward and back.
Yes, it has to be able to do that.
Yes, so the inner arch is related to the fibula. The outer arch, the cuboid and the calcaneus, you watch as I turn this, it turns her foot up and in to the middle.
Because of the spiral nature of the tibia.
That's right. and the way that the tibia comes up and in, and all the powerful movements that I'm going to make if I'm going to lift a heavy, heavy weight. I'm going to have to utilize these two outer bones as a I mean, this is a small surface area to stand on. I need to have some kind of outriggers to stand on. So this whole chain of the outer two bones creates the possibility that I can have the support up and into myself. All the movements of lifting myself away, of unfolding myself, come more clearly off of the relationship of the heel and the outrigger of the fourth toes. If I'm going to lift a really heavy weight, I'm standing here and I'm going to lift a heavy weight, there's no way in the world that I do that. Everything is going to go until I can find the way that my heel is connected to the ground, the way that the fourth metatarsal is engaged in such a way that now that I have a stable base, and from that base I can lift myself away from the ground. And with that is going to be the spiral and the spiral up and through myself. So you're always invited to go find yourself a kettlebell of 20 kilos or whatever, and actually we could, another image has come, so if we'll look at the image, another image in just a moment. We'll maybe even use it with her. Okay. So you're all invited to be able to play with lifting the cuboid up and in. So that means to be able to find it, to locate it, and to reach underneath. And what am I going to do? I'm going to turn the cuboid. I'm literally going to come here and reach, and it's like I'm going to invite the cuboid to turn in such a way that it places her foot under her knee, so that you can sense what it's like to have this support as opposed to that support. You can take it back and forth. Now, if I keep here and keep her supported here, so that her knee, she's not going to go to the first approximation. I keep this as a constraint for her. Now roll your pelvis. Okay. So now she's changed because I've created the constraint. I've given her the orthotic at this moment, even though the orthotic doesn't work in the way that the podiatrists think that they work. But I've given her a new ground, haven't I? I've given her a new place. Now for her first movement is now what? She's very clear in the plane. Her knee's now going over this new place in her foot. Her knee is not getting this message to go here. She's getting a different opportunity. But her knee is still coming towards her foot. The weight in her foot is increasing. So then I'm going to give her a very interesting suggestion. If I had a thumbtack, a pin,
a needle.
if I had it and I had it right here at your knee, how are you? You just stuck yourself. How can you make this movement in such a way that you don't stick your knee onto the needle? Yes, now watch. She just did it perfectly. Did you see what she did? What she did in order to find what it meant to go the other way. She started to go the other way where? Way up here in her torso. Yes? She still hasn't located this notion of where the femoral head is in relationship to her pelvis. Okay? There she goes. If she wants to make the movement now, she starts to make the movement by going there. Yeah, and the knee still is going to go forward. But now you can see she's side bending herself. Okay, so we have a lot of information that we're gathering, aren't we, about the way that she senses this experience for herself. And we can almost guarantee to her that, that in some ways this is a part of the entire image, the motor image that she has of the way that she has, that's created the back pain for her, the way that she maintains the back pain. Yeah? Okay, so we have a good start in just looking at how she does that. I have to know what I'm looking for, though, don't I? I have to look to see what could be the most pristine, simple, clearest point of organization to begin the movement. Yeah? And I have to know when everything else isn't that. Yeah? And again, you see, I haven't corrected her. I've given her a different surface to play with, and I'm still asking her, how do you initiate the movement? And I've given her other constraints. Notice if I put this here, what would happen? But someone is still inviting her to make this discovery. Now look, what's the difference between the way that she rests automatically on this side? Where's her foot? Do I have to do this? I don't even have to do it. Her whole foot sits and rests. Here's the fourth metatarsal. Here's her heel. She's not rolled in. Her knee's here. Her leg is more or less under her knee. And if I ask her here to make the movement to begin to roll to the other side, whoop, what did she do? She came forward, but where did she initiate from? She had something in here that she could find. Yeah, she had something that she could find. So now it's a matter of refining that. So now make it so that you don't put any more weight into your foot. Great. Use that. That's perfect. That would be the second part of the lesson. but you did it. Yeah, but that's fine because you found out that you could use both. Yeah.
I can live without. I can't find anything without pushing.
Right. Right. So do you have the left leg there? You do. Ah, how nice of you. Thank you. Because this is what we're going to start to figure out how to do. So now, where am I going to be able to place my hands with her or with anybody in such a way that I can begin to invite them to find how to make the movement? Yeah. So I have to be able to have a really, really, really clear sense of the relationship between the femoral head, the grand trochanter, the angle. What angle do I want this movement to go? This movement, if it's going to turn up and into her, I have to promote the movement in such a way that it actually turns in such a way that it goes into her pelvis, don't I? If my hands are going that way, I'm giving her a different message. If I'm giving the message to do this, that's a different message. So I have to have a sense of where will I find the angle? What angle will I touch that will invite her to lift in such a way that this movement will begin to turn up and in? Yeah? And so that she can have a sense of what it's like for this movement to continually turn up and in. Yeah? So I'm inviting her with my hands to make this outer rotation from the outside up and in, aren't I? Yeah? And then I do this because I can't do this with my hand. It's inappropriate. I say, now you look at this and you find this point, and then we imagine this here, and you imagine now that you can find this point of the bone, and what you're going to do is you're going to turn the inner part of your thigh up and in, like that. So now she's found the inner part, and now she's found the outer part. Now, it may take, with some of the public, a little bit more, a few more tries with this, yeah? Because they can't even, some people can't even imagine doing this, right? Now, just to make it really clear for you that you're never stuck when the person can't do it, roll to your side for a moment. Good. And please now turn your right knee up to the ceiling and place your right foot on the floor. Great. Wait, just place it on the floor. Okay, very nice. Now begin to lengthen this leg a little bit. Now very slowly, lower yourself back to the table. Good, start, go back again. She's doing it. She's lowered herself and she's lifted herself. Right? So go back again and lift. That's right. So now she's making the movement. She's floating back and forth between sinking to the table and returning to the table. So we just, all we have to do is create the conditions where they can find the movement. Yeah. So that, because oftentimes people can't go through this process of just simply finding, now find out if it's possible from here, now find out if it's possible for you to just lift this more easily. Yes, without increasing the weight in your foot. That's it. And now find for yourself, because stay there, stay there, stay there. Look how stable you are. That's nice. This movement comes up and all the way into your upper back. Now, if she lengthens her arm overhead, lengthen your arm overhead, turn to look to see your hand, and so that this movement spirals all the way up and she gets tone all the way up between her shoulder blades, doesn't she? She's now beginning to lift herself to the point where her upper thoracic spine is lifted away from the floor. So the whole process has taken her into the point of lifting her thoracic spine, upper thoracic spine, away from the floor through the most potent, powerful place in her pelvis. Yeah? All right, come back down again. I know it's your good side. We're Feldenkrais practitioners. I purposely took the time to look at what you did because I didn't know. I didn't have the time to guess because I just did an imaginary lesson with you, but I didn't have the time. And so we took a few moments and we looked at what you did on this side. And then we can almost always guess. We don't know for sure, but 80% of the time we can guess that the other side, if you're on the side and it's clunky and heavy, you can almost always guess that the other side will have a different organization that you can utilize. Yeah, this is very important. There's to find within the person where they can be successful, what they can do perfectly. Okay, so now what am I going to do? Can you imagine what the lesson plan is going to be now? We've taken what she does perfectly, right? So it's latent within her still, isn't it? Yeah? Great.
When you said people can imagine or find in the good side and in the bad side, that they can find to work.
It's not. No, I think that you'll find that people are much closer to being able to make this movement up and through themselves on one side than the other. Not perfected, but that there's generally an availability on one side that's more clear than on the other side. And that almost invariably where the back pain is at the moment where the person shears across themselves. Yeah? Rather than having, as we go to begin to discover, if I provide this for you now, and provide this for you now, and then wait a second, I give you the little bit of input that you need to have the sense of what it's like for this movement to come up and through. Terrible. That's your bad side doing a really, really nice job. Yeah? It's a terrible thing. Don't let it do it any better than that. Whatever you do. Now watch. Because I'm going to really support this. We know that this movement has to have the fibula go where? Where does the tibia have to go? Where? How does the ankle have to go? Where does the support have to go? It has to go. And where does it go in the heel? The movement goes back toward the heel. This spiral is spiraling. That's it. So that spiral, now look how solid she is. And then she can turn this leg on too. And then she can have both legs. And there is support for a person's back in a way that goes all the way up. Reach your arm overhead, look up to see, so that she can see that all the way into the space between her scapula is this power. Yeah? That you've invited her to have the postural, you've tonified the muscles that she needs to lift herself. Yeah? I invited the fibula to go back. I can start this movement here. I can start this movement here. I can start this movement here. I can support this movement. And now I can make it so that she goes down and comes back up, It goes down, it comes back up. Because I can initiate the pattern for her. I can initiate, when all the elements of the pattern are intact, I can initiate the pattern. Now, let's get her to get even better. I'm going to remind her of the inner part and turning the inner part into herself. Look at the power. Look what happens when she turns the inner part into herself. Pow, that's power. Yeah? That's the power that the golfer has that hits the ball 300 yards. It's the bowler has when he throws. It's the cricket man when he hits it out of the ring. It's yes, yeah, exactly. Beautiful. Okay, now let's see what happens. We can take this now. We can watch her. How does she now lift her pelvis? We can see, and I'm still going to give her this world. Yeah. So that she's just reminded for a moment. It's going to take more than a few remindings, right? But for her, it's worth it because she's going to be able to invest in herself in a way that in her own learning, she learns to care for herself. Okay, so now begin to lift your pelvis. Beautiful, beautiful. Now, right there, she's stuck, right? And her legs want to get heavy. What has to happen in the place in her spine that she doesn't know how to organize yet? That's right. Something has to happen that makes it so that her spine can turn upwards, her sternum can turn upwards, and her shoulders can come downwards. In other words, she has to keep lifting up and through herself, away from the ground, just like you learned in that lesson. Okay, now, please come and sit, and let's observe how you sit now. Find the floor the way that your feet just touch the floor. Where do you want to find your knees, the support? You remember me bringing the cuboid up and under your left foot. So what's it like to bring that up? And so where is it that your knee is? That's right. And how do you bring the cuboid under your right foot? And how do you then begin to draw the weight of your pelvis? That's it, up, and so that this movement that you make comes up, into you. Now there's power. Beautiful. And the other leg turns on too. That's right. Now, if you were holding a person's head here, you could hold the person's head, that whole thing. Now you're holding weight. But look at now the length in her spine and the power she has. Yeah? Now, what's your experience of your back now? It's okay? You'd like to, wait, just let me finish this for a moment. This is a better way for you to experience yourself? Okay, good. So it's worth continuing to explore.
Yes.
Good. All right.
I feel my habitual
Yes.
position.
Yeah.
When I am in a new one that I experience in other ATMs,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm out of.
Yeah, you're out of what you've historically known. And then the question is, are you safe in this moment? If you look now, because you're not in the normal, in your historic way, can you find a measure of comfort and safety in this? Okay, so that's part of the question. You have to be able to find internally whether this actually is whether it's worth. You won't throw away the old unless you have something better. So how do you know if this is better?
I feel relief.
That's one thing that's important.
I feel support in my.
Mm-hmm.
I feel lightness.
Yeah. Yes. And what about this breath that we started playing with, this ability to breathe into the front and the back, the way that this whole breath, that whole global breath, look, Yeah. All right, so please come and stand now for a moment. And see what it's like to keep lifting yourself up away, bring your feet a little closer together. And just lift yourself up and up and up as if you're almost ready to float onto your tiptoes. That's it. And find out how it is for you to stand like that. A tall, beautiful, elegant woman. It's so funny that people take that, associate that with a kind of an arrogance.
I feel taller
Yeah. Yeah. You're very regal. Yeah. Okay. It's a very, very regal quality. All right. All right. So your assignment, if you want to play with it, is to take all these elements that we played with, to find the cuboid, you look at the person sitting, to find the cuboid, go look to one side, look to the other side, find the side that's easier, make it more clear, bring it to the other side, then have them lift both. Yeah. Take the elements of the lessons that we've been doing and bring them into a more complete whole pattern. Yeah. Okay. And you're practicing functional integration. You're practicing functional integration in the sense that you're inviting the person to discover the potential that's hidden within them, that they don't know that they don't know. And you're inviting them to bring that out. Yeah? Through the dialogue, through the exploration, through the discovery. And I can tell you that with my clients, there is nothing that I do with them, or nothing I'm doing with you that I don't do with them. I have my skeleton, I have the cuboid, I have the foot, I do all the points of contact with them. I help them see and explore and experience and notice the difference. And when I lift here, what do you notice? And what do you, everything that I demonstrated in that moment is a part of the way I work with my clients. Okay? Now, I don't know if that's my way of working. Nobody taught me how to work because I left the training in 1983 and I moved to Seattle and there wasn't anybody to teach me. Most of what you see is what I've evolved over the years. Okay? All right. So please, what do we have for time? So I think, you would like a tea break first. Okay. Yeah. No, that's perfect. So we're going to take a tea break. What will be your guidelines that you're not going to lose over the tea break? Because you can see that this stuff will evaporate in a heartbeat. How are you going to, what will you use as the means by which you're going to come back into when you come to practice? If there was, you were the only person left on the planet who knows this work, and it's your job to bring the Feldenkrais method back onto a planet that has complete, there's no books, there's no resources, there's no tapes, there's no Jeff Hallers, there's no Zorans, there's no one, but you are the holder of the lamp. Yeah? How will you be the one who holds the fire to bring this? Yeah. 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 Okay. We have every single element of this that we just did here is something that we've done since the first day. We've looked at it in what orientation? Sitting, lying. Okay, go play.